Right, the next thing to do is paint the base brown. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch the whole thing. We're going to need some burnt umber, a bit of white, some PVA glue, roughly equal proportions of each of those, and then I'll mix this up with an old paper clip. Some water. Okay, let's get to work. Okay, leave that to dry and come back and give it a second coat later. Right, the next step is to add some earth blend turf to the grass area. So that's the product we're going to use: scenic cement, spray or brush on adhesive. I've poured a little bit out into the bottle cap here, and because I want to get really good coverage, it's I find it best to brush on at this stage. Once you've got turf on there, you can't really effectively brush on top of turf, so you need to spray for that bit. This is obviously flipping around a bit. For some reason I've decided to do this with my camera handheld, so I don't have a hand to hold it. I would recommend you use both hands if you have them. And this is wobbling around because I've attached my cog on the bottom. Obviously once it's in your setup, that cog will be neatly nestled into the riser hex or the jigsaw piece below, the snowflake below, and while I'm wobbling around like this, it'll be nice and snug. Right, I'm going to transfer this to my box for turfing. Okay, so I've got some earth blend which I'm going to scatter on from a height, and I'm using a jam jar with some holes in the lid to apply it. So we get a nice good coverage with this. It's going to be covered by my green blend later. If you want to do this really neatly, a little pipette to draw up some scenic cement is quite handy, and will give you better control. I'm going to attempt it here with my sprayer set onto the lightest setting. It's got two settings, sort of a heavy spray and a light spray. So I'm going to try the light spray, and I'm going to try and spray over my surface of the hexagon without getting too close to the tree itself. Or you can just drip it on. See, choose the. You can see that you can, yeah. So this is, yeah, this is a bit imprecise really. I kind of feel like I ought to have better tools for this. I did have a pipette that was quite handy, but I'm afraid it got worn out after repeated use. I should have to get myself a new one. So you need to be quite thorough with this, because if you don't have any scenic cement there, the grass is not going to stick to it. So I'm going all over, apart from the area right next to the trunk. Okay, here's my grass blend in a jam jar with some holes punched through the lid with a hammer and nail. I mean, there's no requirement for you to use this kind of product. You may want to do a completely different effect for your land. You might not even want grass there. Maybe you can have snow or something. But this is how I like to do it. And I do sort of recommend once you've pick yourself a method you're going to stick with. Make sure you remove any turf from the edges. It'll just look a lot neater, and you won't have any problems with it getting trapped between two hexes and maybe stopping them aligning properly. It's unlikely, but why take the risk? Okay, there we go. Now I just need to attach some foliage to it. So I've got a range of different foliages. This is from Wood and Scenics, other brands are available. So 3 different kinds of clump foliage. I've got some here. So this is medium green. I don't know how well the colours are looking out in this picture, but sorry. Light green and some dark green. So a mix of different colours is definitely a good idea on your terrain. However, I don't recommend at all that you should mix the 3 colours on the same tree. What you want is to pick a particular colour for your tree. I'm going to go for light green for this one. And your next tree do a different colour, and your third tree do a different colour. You have a mix of different trees, but on an individual tree, if you try and mix these colours together, it will just look weird. So don't try it. Okay, so I'll pop these back. Now, as you may know, Wood and Scenics is a company I use quite a lot for my terrain making. They don't set themselves out as a company for wargaming. They're really primarily a railroad modelling company. And normally that's not a problem. Their products work equally well for both. Trees is one of the ones I find a bit of an exception. So the clump foliage isn't quite as durable as you might hope. The trees are fine, but the clump foliage doesn't stick onto it very well. And at the heart of that is the product they recommend for it, which is called Hobby Tack adhesive. And this is the first time I find myself, rather than recommending a Wood and Scenics product, it's a stay away warning. So this product, this particular adhesive, says stays tacky, and it really does. You can put this on and come back a year later and touch it and it'll still be sticky, still tacky to the touch. Which sounds great, and for railroad modelling it may be fine. You can put your stuff on and you're not sure you like it, move it somewhere else. But it doesn't stay on. Any slight movement at all, you're moving your terrain around, it just falls off until you get dust and things stuck to the tacky stuff, and then it's no good anymore. So, might be good for railroad modelling, it's rubbish for wargaming. I've tried PVA glue, which is what I use for a lot of things, as you know, white glue, and provided you can get the clump foliage to stay in contact in the right places for the duration of the white glue drying, that's fine. That's a lot of ifs, and I found it pretty hard to do that. So I think the best thing to use is some super glue. This one is Gorilla super glue, whatever super glue you happen to have to hand. It's not one I've used before. It's a super glue gel, which makes it slightly easier. Right, so I'm going to get my light green foliage, get a few clumps. It comes with quite big lumps and small bits. You know, use a few bits that work nicely. And you can always rip it up to get smaller pieces. But generally with the trees, because you haven't got a lot of armature to work with here, there's not a lot of branches, so you're getting some big clumps of tree foliage on there will help. So I'll start near the bottom here. Put on some super glue gel. And if you're not unsure, I would say glue things to the upper surface. Really, it would be nice if you could just spike this into the spike these branches into the foliage and glue on that way, but it doesn't really work. I've tried that in the past, so probably best to stick it to the upper side. It's not often going to look from underneath, and I guess in real life you can kind of see the branches from underneath, can't you? So I'll hold on this block of foam, and it says sets in 10 to 45 seconds. So I'll glue this on, and then I shall probably speed up the rest of the video so you can see me gluing on the rest of it, because it would be boring literally watching glue dry. So for the parts that are the branches which are pointing upwards, where you can kind of see both sides, there isn't really an underside so much. You can sort of sandwich put glue on both sides and sandwich it. I mean, you can do that on any of the branches, but that's going to work best on the uppermost ones. So you can sandwich some of the clump foliage on both sides. Okay, there we go. Make sure I don't get loose bits. And there you go, so my finished tree. Hopefully that will keep its leaves through winter and into the next year. Okay, thank you.